Tonight, on day 97 of the oil spill, word that BP CEO Tony Hayward is out. While in the Gulf, efforts to stop the leak for good are back on track. I'm Russ Mitchell. Also tonight, the search goes on for 2 American servicemen missing in Afghanistan as the Taliban offer an exchange. Extreme weather is still taking its toll, from a burst dam in Iowa to record-breaking heat in the east. And Doctor Dilemma. With the ranks of older patients about to skyrocket, the number of doctors specializing in their care is not keeping pace.
To be a good geriatrician, you need to be a good listener.
This is the CBS Evening News with Russ Mitchell.
And good evening. CBS News has learned tonight that BP Chief Tony Hayward will be out and replaced in the next few days. Hayward, who angered both Gulf Coast residents and the White House with what they called insensitive statements, is not commenting on the reports. But his ouster could come when the company's board meets this week. Tony Guida has the latest.
I'm devastated by the accident. Absolutely devastated.
Unfortunately for Tony Hayward, too many of his comments about the disaster in the Gulf spoke much louder than those. BP's board meets Monday amid a flood of reports that Hayward is out.
There is no doubt that he is going. It will be announced at the very latest on Tuesday. When
Terry McAllister, energy editor of The Guardian in London, says the decision to oust Hayward is an attempt to salvage the BP brand in America, where the company earns fully 40% of its profits.
The company cannot continue in its present state in America, and the only way of giving itself a fighting chance is to get rid of the boss.
Hayward provided all the rope necessary to hang himself. Tin-eared statements as a geyser of oil poured daily into the Gulf. Hayward to Britain Sky News. I think the environmental impact of this disaster is likely to be very modest. And this.
There's no one who wants this thing over more than I do. I'd like my life back.
Congress accused him of stonewalling their investigation into the spill. 2 days later, Hayward went sailing off the Isle of Wight.
Hayward hit all the negatives. He did everything wrong from a crisis management perspective.
Hayward's replacement is said to be Bob Dudley, a newcomer to BP's board. He joined just 18 months ago. He was considered for CEO in 2007, but lost out to Hayward. Most significant, Dudley is an American, born just 65 miles from the Gulf Coast.
He's not only an American, he is someone from the district, from the Gulf area, which is a big thing. He is someone who is actively involved with cleaning up the mess, which is certainly a big plus for him.
BP is expected to report huge second quarter earnings on Tuesday, $5 billion. Plenty to pay off Hayward's severance and pension, totaling nearly $17 million. But those profits are swamped by the amount that BP has set aside for Gulf claims and cleanup. $15 billion so far, but not nearly enough, according to most experts. Russ?
Tony Guida, thanks a lot. And the government's top official on the scene of the oil spill says Hayward's departure will not affect the Obama administration's cleanup effort. Retired Coast Guard Admiral Thad Allen says the government's work plan will continue no matter who's in charge. In the meantime, on this day 97 since the spill began, it was slow going for crews as they got back to work. Kelly Cobier is in Grand Isle, Louisiana with the latest. Kelly, good evening.
Good evening, Russ. Those cleanup crews are slowly now getting back into place after the threat of Tropical Storm Bonnie chased them away over the weekend. Of course, the storm never materialized. They'll be back in full force by tomorrow to find out what winds and waves from a very weak system left behind. Across the Gulf Coast, helicopters are scanning the shoreline for oil, while a mile under sea, the work to plug BP's well is picking up speed. Pressure in the well is still rising, and there's no talk of collecting oil anymore, just stopping it for good.
You have to prioritize what you're going to do, and obviously getting that pipe in the relief well right now is the most important item we're working on.
Crews will finish stacking a mile of steel pipe down to the sea floor around midnight. Then they'll remove a temporary plug called a storm packer, clear out the tunnel, and lay a final segment of steel casing, a liner, to reinforce the well, followed by concrete. While the concrete is drying, BP could try the static kill, pumping mud down into the blown-out well, a temporary fix.
The next week will be preps, making sure everything's ready to go. and getting the liner run, and then the week of the 1st of August is when we will attempt to do the static kill.
It still has to be sealed deep in the earth with a relief well to be permanently plugged. Millions of gallons of oil from BP's spill are still in the water, and the weekend storm pushed all of it north, closer to the Gulf shoreline. It hit this beach late Friday, just as workers were clearing out. They're not due back until Tuesday. These pilings were put in place to hold a long row of steel barges out in the middle of the water to block the oil. Those barges are all still tied up at shore, and it could be a week before this wall is rebuilt. In Mississippi, out-of-work fishermen are preparing to get back on the water to look for oil again. Barry Rando just wants to work.
There's no oyster and no shrimping right now, and that was our way of living. So anything BP could throw at us, we'll take it.
That work could become more scarce soon. Even before this storm, boats were finding less and less oil to skim. If that's still the case once they complete these overflights, the Coast Guard and BP will take a second look and could begin scaling back the number of boats and people helping to clean up. Russ?
Kelly Cobier in Grand Isle, Louisiana, thank you. The New York Times and Britain's Guardian newspaper are reporting tonight on an explosive leak of classified documents from the war in Afghanistan. They are set to reveal unreported incidents of civilians killed by NATO forces, unreported actions by covert forces, and fears that Pakistan and Iran are fueling the insurgency. The papers were given access to thousands of documents obtained by the whistleblowing website WikiLeaks. In Afghanistan tonight, there is still no word on the fate of 2 American servicemen missing since Friday in an eastern province. National security correspondent David Martin has the latest on the U.S. search and the Taliban claims.
The U.S. blanketed the area with flyers and posters showing pictures of the 2 sailors and offering a $20,000 reward for information leading to their safe return.
There is a tremendous amount of effort going on to find them, to search, and beyond that, I can't discuss any additional details.
The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, who was visiting Afghanistan at the time, called it an unusual circumstance. The 2 sailors, members of a team training Afghans, left their base at Camp Julian near Kabul in an SUV for the relatively short drive to Camp Eggers. Yet their badly shot-up vehicle was found 80 miles south of Kabul. Why they strayed so far and why they drove into Taliban-controlled territory by themselves, a blatant violation of security procedures, remain unknown. A statement posted on a Taliban website said they ambushed the SUV in an attempt to capture the sailors alive. When the 2 men fought back, the Taliban opened fire, killing one but capturing the other alive. The only other American serviceman known to be in enemy hands is Specialist Bo Bergdahl, who walked away from his outpost 13 months ago and has since been seen only in Taliban videos.
I'm scared. I'm scared I won't be able to go home.
CBS newsman Jerry Van Dyke, who was held captive by the Taliban for 45 days, can tell you exactly what it feels like.
You're constantly afraid the door is going to open up, and then that door is going to be a man with a black turban, and he's going to hold a rifle, and he's going to take you outside, and they're going to cut off your head.
Van Dyke is living proof the Taliban don't always kill their prisoners. But even with the best of outcomes, it is a harrowing experience. Russ?
David Martin at the Pentagon. Thank you. The United States and South Korea have begun joint military exercises this weekend off the east coast of Korea. The air and sea drills are in response to North Korea's sinking of a South Korean warship in March. North Korea calls the exercise a, quote, unpardonable provocation and is threatening to retaliate with, quote, sacred war. Back in this country, Americans are enduring another weekend of extreme summer weather, everything from violent storms to blistering temperatures. In Raleigh, the heat index of temperature plus humidity hit 112 today. Richmond and Washington were close behind at 107. In the Midwest, flooding from a failed dam is the most immediate threat. Cynthia Bowers in the town of Delhi, Iowa tonight with the latest on that. Cynthia, good evening.
Good evening, Russ. You're looking at the dam that gave way over the weekend. I mean, this is something that nobody anticipated. 10 inches of rain, though, fell really fast. Up to 9 inches of rain in less than a day burst a dam, sending water 45 feet down into the Maquoketa River. What was once a hydroelectric dam had stood for almost 90 years. Downstream in Monticello, a town of about 3,600, a sewage plant is underwater. The cleanup will be messy.
There's going to be a lot of people in a lot worse shape than we are. You know, we'll have a mess in the basement. We'll have to cut out drywall and start over again.
Other parts of Iowa are picking up the pieces after dangerous storms.
Get inside!
Including a tornado. Several storms also caused flooding in Chicago.
Never seen it in the city. Unbelievable.
Today, thunderstorms hit further east in New York City, bringing temperatures there down from a high of 93. Records fell up and down the East Coast today. In Virginia, it was 105 in Richmond and Norfolk. In North Carolina, Charlotte hit 103. Raleigh touched 102. Elsewhere, excessive heat warnings and advisories covered parts of 13 states. In the nation's capital, it was 99 degrees as the Boy Scouts of America celebrated a sweaty 100th anniversary. Some meteorologists think a recurring El Nino, which warmed the waters of the Pacific on schedule this year, is to blame.
Every 11 years, it seems like, set it on 55, 66, 77, 88, 99, and now 2010. You have an extraordinary amount of record high temperatures in the eastern part of the United States during the month of July.
Whatever the cause of July's extreme weather, folks here in Delhi and Monticello, Iowa are grateful for a forecast that calls for sunshine to start a cleanup process that is going to cost millions of dollars. Russ?
Cynthia Bowers in Delhi, Iowa. Thank you very much. And still ahead on tonight's CBS Evening News, is there a doctor for older patients in the house? Health officials in California have launched a vaccination campaign after declaring the state's worst epidemic of whooping cough in a half a century. 6 infants have died of the bacterial infection so far this year in California, and some 1,500 cases have been reported. Another crisis may be brewing at the other end of the age spectrum as baby boomers by the millions age and the number of doctors trained to care for them shrinks. Here's John Blackstone with more.
At 96, Koichi Takei says something surprising about his health.
Any pain there? No.
He's feeling better now than he was 3 years ago.
And I do a lot of walking.
The improvement is not because he's on a new drug, his daughter says, but because he got a new doctor.
Having a primary care who is sensitive to the needs of an older person is so important.
UC Davis's Dr. Michael McLeod is a geriatrician. He's trained to address the complex needs of aging patients, especially those in their 80s and beyond.
We're trying to help people to function to their absolute maximal potential with what they have.
That often means finding ways to take them off medications other doctors have prescribed, but are causing unwanted side effects.
We see people sometimes coming in on 10, 15, even 20 medications, and we're able to just unravel these one by one.
Geriatricians are certain to be in growing demand now that the oldest baby boomers are approaching 65. But there are just over 7,000 certified geriatricians in the United States. It's estimated we should have 16,000. And by 2030, we will need 36,000 geriatricians to care for an aging population. Still, it's a specialty that attracts few new doctors.
In general, our society is very anti-aging. Everything that's out there is to stay young and youthful. So it may not even be a consideration for some doctors to think of taking care of old people.
There's another reason fewer doctors are becoming geriatricians. The average income, about $150,000 a year, is much lower than other specialties.
Good morning.
But payback isn't always in dollars. A study of job satisfaction among doctors showed geriatricians are the most satisfied.
I like working with this older population. I find them fascinating. They bring so much to the table.
Patients seem well satisfied, too.
I have a high comfort level that he cares.
Those hoping to increase the number of geriatricians want to include more geriatric training in medical school and increase the pay for this special group of doctors whose patients aren't getting any younger. John Blackstone, CBS News, Los Angeles.
And just ahead on tonight's CBS Evening News, looking for the cause of Germany's deadly stampede. Treasury Secretary Tim Geithner said today that Bush-era tax cuts should continue beyond this year for individuals earning less than $200,000 and couples earning less than $250,000. However, he said tax cuts should end next year for those earning more.
I think it is fair and good policy to allow those tax cuts that only go to 2 to 3% of the highest earners in the country to expire as scheduled. The country can withstand that, the economy can withstand that, and I think it's good policy.
Also this Sunday, German prosecutors have opened an investigation into yesterday's tragic stampede at the so-called Love Parade music festival near Dusseldorf. The event, promising to promote peace and love, became a scene of chaos and fear. 19 were crushed to death and more than 300 injured after a stampede at the music festival in Duisburg. More than 1 million people were attending the concert. The only entrance to the site was a narrow tunnel, which was packed. Investigators don't know what caused the crowd to panic.
The police had warned that there was a situation developing that would end in chaos.
Amateur video shows police trying to contain the crowd as some concert goers climbed over barricades, desperate to get out. German Chancellor Angela Merkel called today for an investigation, and the festival, held annually since 1989, has been permanently shut down. In sports, Spain's Alberto Contador entered Paris in triumph to win the Tour de France for the third time in 4 years. Today's start was delayed while officials made American Lance Armstrong remove an unauthorized jersey honoring people with cancer. On what he calls his final tour, the 7-time winner finished 23rd. And coming up on tonight's CBS Evening News, one woman's campaign for a greener America, one bottle at a time. Finally tonight, you may remember the environmentalist mantra, think globally, act locally. Now an 82-year-old woman from an historic Revolutionary War town is trying to take that message to heart. And that's tonight's Sunday cover, one woman's uphill battle against the plastic bottle. Jean Hill has lived in Concord, Massachusetts for 40 years. But it was only a few months ago that this grandmother, best known for her blueberry pie, became a political force.
There's nothing wrong with tap water. Concord's tap water is fine. Last year, the town passed a resolution.
At the annual town meeting in April, Hill proposed a resolution to ban her town from selling still water in plastic bottles. It passed.
The most appalling was the trashing of our planet.
And then there's the waste. Only 27% of used plastic water bottles are recycled. The rest are thrown away.
They're filling our landfills and they're ending up in the oceans.
Americans now consume 39 billion gallons of bottled water a year, spending $11 billion. But an industry group tells CBS News the plastic bottles contribute less than 1% of the U.S. waste stream.
Don't understand why it's only water.
Bob Vello is the general manager of Crosby's Marketplace in Concord. Grocery stores like his worry that a ban would send customers someplace else to buy their water and the rest of their groceries.
If plastic is the issue, then you would expect it to be everything, whether it be soda or whatever.
We've heard some concern expressed that water is a perfectly lawful substance.
Concord's town manager, Chris Whalen, understands his town's green streak. It's home to Walden Pond, which people here consider the birthplace of the conservation movement.
I think the overall sentiment was we need to do more to protect the environment, reduce our consumption of petroleum-based products and plastic and that type of thing.
Concord would become the first American town to ban the sale of bottled water. A revolutionary move in a place where the first shots of the Revolutionary War were fired 235 years ago. But the state's attorney general found the bottle ban cannot be enforced because there's not even a penalty for violation. Hill plans to revise her bylaw and try again.
Thank you for, quote, sticking your neck out, unquote, on the plastic issue.
She's received postcards of support from around the country.
I'm 82 years old. I don't want to go until I'm all used up. And so I took on this battle, and I'm determined to see it through.
And that is the CBS Evening News. Later on CBS 60 Minutes. Thanks for joining us this Sunday evening. I'm Russ Mitchell, CBS News in New York. Katie Couric will be here tomorrow. Good night.
On television, online, and on the go. CBS News, the most powerful reporting anywhere.